I just need to ramp up my energy a little bit.
I know, I'm feeling like...
It's a very...
And for those listening, I won't tell you what she's doing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Remind podcast. My name's Dr. Ashleigh Moreland, and I am joined by my beautiful friend and co-host, David Masterton. We hope you are doing awesome, by the way. Mid-Jan already, can you believe it? Not too far off before kids are back at school. But in the season of post-Christmas and preparing for kids to be back at school, it gets expensive, right?
Oh, well, I mean, not just that, but the season to give, the season for joy, the season for credit cards to go nuts and bank accounts to lose a lot of weight.
Yeah. And so we thought we would chat today about money stories and how our money stories, basically what they are, how to identify them, how they play out in our lives, how they influence our behaviors, the decisions that we make. All of this can come back to these intergenerational money stories. So it's a new concept for a lot of people. For many people, they sort of just take this for granted. It's a huge blind spot and they're completely oblivious to how their money stories play out in their lives. But we want to shed some light on that today. So when I say money stories, Dave, what comes to mind for you?
There once was a person with no money. And then I was trying to think of something funny. But anyway, no, it's not those kind of stories. It's more along the lines of, how do you relate to money?
Yeah. What's your Yes.
Yeah.
How do you relate with and to? It's a relationship.
And normally how I suppose I relate to money, and I suppose how a lot of people relate to money, is through the stories they hear about it, their own experiences.
Yeah. And observing others.
Yeah. And when you experience yourself, normally there's a bit of when you're making decisions around money, normally, hopefully, it's an informed decision. And when it is, what's that based on? Is it based on, oh, I can't do this because money is in very limited supply? I can't quit my job because I won't be able to find another one and I have all these bills to pay and I won't find something better? Or, I mean, there's a number of different money stories that you could have.
Yeah.
And I guess when people talk about abundance,
Isn't that grinds me?
it does, because the funny thing is people they just talk about abundance, and you know what? It's so counterintuitive. I can have whenever I want, however I want. It's sort of like, you deserve to be in the loony bin. Okay, but that's how much of that is conditioning.
Yeah, right. So even on this, something that comes to mind for me quite a bit is when there's so much focus on seeking abundance, it's coming from the energy of lack.
Well, yeah.
It's coming from the energy of not having the thing that you want to have. And there's a really interesting Bible verse that talks about, if you first focus on the kingdom of God, all these other things will be added unto you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really profound for me because in terms of working through my own money stories and things like that, really understanding that when I focus on money, the other really common one that's misquoted is money is the root of all evil. Oh, it's a powerful one, isn't it? So the really interesting thing is that that's a misquoted Bible verse. Even non-Christians will throw that verse out, not even knowing that it's a misquoted Bible verse, but it's actually the love of money is the root of all evil. And when you see that play out, when our focus is on money, our other values and our other morals can go by the wayside a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so we start to stretch truths. We start to make decisions that aren't aligned with our best interest or the best interest of others. There's all these things that come into play. And so in the Bible verse, it says, seek first the kingdom of God and all these other things will be added unto you. In my own life, that was something that I had to navigate, because the kingdom of God to me is living according to those what we would say kingdom values. It's loving others well, loving yourself well, honoring, it's kindness, it's honesty, it's truth, it's gentleness, it's peace, it's all of these things. And so part of this is you need to know who you really are, and you need to be working in alignment with that. And so
Mm.
the thing for me was when I started really focusing on who I was, focusing on living a values aligned life, making decisions based on the impact that I could have, all of a sudden, as far as the money, the energy exchange for doing that, there was financial provision. So if I focused on the money, what might that motivate me to do? It might motivate me to sell someone into a program that they're not ready for, or that's not suited for them, or to sell something that is more expensive than what they need, or whatever. And you see these tactics in sales industries where they just have to meet sales KPIs. It's not aligned and it's not values driven. So, oh my gosh, it becomes such a big topic, doesn't
Oh,
it?
it's massive because I'm going to come back to the conditioning, right?
Hmm.
How are we conditioned? Well, you've said money is the root of all evil. We've all heard that.
Yeah, money doesn't
Mm,
grow on trees.
my next one, absolutely.
Mhm. I can't afford it,
Yep.
before they've
Uh,
even looked at their financial position or looked at their spending habits or anything. It's just a default of I can't afford
yep.
it.
It's too expensive. Um, I'd
Oh,
love to.
I heard one recently which really struck me,
Mm,
because I recall growing up with this being a thing of I don't spend money I don't have. And then when I really
ah.
sat with that, because we were talking about finance options and things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in spending money I don't have. And then when I sat with that, I thought, aren't you glad I did? I spent six figures on my continuing education, on, 10 years of uni plus all of the study and practitioner training and everything that I've done since then. I spent money I didn't have. I'm so grateful the brain surgeon who removed my brain tumor spent money they didn't have.
Mm.
I'm so grateful the lawyer that has drawn up all of my contracts and done all of that for me has spent money they didn't have to go to law school so that they could perform that function in society. And it was such an interesting thing, because it was the first time I'd ever really considered that, my
Mm.
relationship with money or debt, where it was actually debt is support. It's just a programming thing that debt was bad. And if you had any debt, then it was a problem.
And when you get into the super wealthy, they use debt like crazy.
Oh, they leverage debt. That's how they got
So,
super wealthy.
and that's how it creates more wealth.
Yes.
So it's certainly not
Is
a
there
bad thing.
is there a saying? I'm not super wealthy, so I'm not up with all the sayings of the super wealthy. But is there a
Sure,
saying something along the lines of invest other people's money to grow your own, or something to that effect?
I
Like
haven't
as
heard that
in,
one, but it makes sense that
yeah,
you have your own assets and then you buy assets and you leverage against it, and then you buy more
yeah.
assets
And
and you
so all
leverage
your
against
assets are
that, and then
based
you
off
leverage.
borrowed money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really coming like it's a great idea now to then think about what was your relationship with money when you were a kid.
What were your parents' relationship with money? What
Well,
did you observe? How did they
how
spend? What was their
what,
energy there?
when you asked to buy something as a kid, and I mean even I still say it. Um, I don't say it too often now. I'll say something else, but I remember saying to my kids, we can't afford that. It's not that we can't afford that. So I don't want to afford to get you a $10 toy every time we go into Woolworths. So
Yes.
I got better things to spend my money on.
Isn't that interesting? Which is true.
Yeah.
It's true. That's a responsible financial decision, but we are lazy in how we communicate that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we communicate through the story of we can't afford that, I had this experience recently with my daughter with book club. She was
Mm-hmm.
crying because her friends were getting book club and she wasn't getting anything, and she never gets book club and all this kind of thing. And there was a past version of me that would have just said, we can't afford it, because it's
Mm.
easy. It's easy for a 7-year-old to understand. But what I did is I got a piece of paper and I actually got, I think I told you this, I think I got about $1,200 cash or thereabouts. And I sat her down and I wrote a whole heap of things. I wrote a holiday, going out for dinner, going to the movies, buying an ice cream on the weekend, going and like replacing her school jumper that she lost, and all
Mm-hmm.
these things that cost money. And I estimated how much each one of them cost. And of course, I put book club in there too for good measure. But of
Nice.
course, I gave her the money and she wanted to allocate money to each of the things. And then we counted how much was left. And I said, "Oh no, how much was our holiday?" And she said the number that I had written down. And I said, "And how much did we have?" And she said that number. And I said, "Oh, I know that's disappointing that we'll miss out on our holiday, but we've got all this other stuff. We've been to the movies and we've had ice cream and we bought a new jumper to replace the one you lost. And we've done this and done that."
Mm.
And she was like, "I don't want to miss out on my holiday." And that was the moment. It was like a defining moment for her to realize it's not that we can't afford it. We can afford it. It's just that it's a choice and a decision in how we steward those resources.
Mm.
And so it's a choice. It's about how we allocate those resources. So when someone says to me, "I can't afford it," when the work that they would be doing would be transforming their life, literally completely transforming their life, and then they'll go out for dinner and they're going on holidays and going to the movies and all those kinds of things. That's okay. But it's just a decision around how they're stewarding their resources.
Mm.
So I love that. Bring awareness. If you find yourself saying we can't afford it, what message does that send to children? And if you were taking your time with it a little more, what would you say instead? So that they actually learn a healthier
Mm.
relationship with money and stuff.
Absolutely. Now, I've been caught in times where I've just taken the easy path because I'm in shopping, got to do something else, not pre-planning. Kids are going, "Can I grab this? Can I grab this? Can I grab this? Can I, please, 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 please." And then when the two of them get in the please, 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 and they're looking at you and they're going, "I think we're cracking him. Please, 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 please." Um, you know, most parents have had that example, and they can
Yeah.
feel you shifting, and so it's almost like they're standing on their tippy toes.
Yeah.
Please, 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 and then you sort of go, "No, no, why? Because we can't afford it, right? Get out of my face." It's a
Yeah.
very easy way to do it,
Yeah.
but if you're sort of a bit more, okay, kids, we're going shopping, and we're going shopping to buy food. We're not buying anything else.
Yeah.
Please don't ask. Simply because, do you need anything? Think about it right now. Think about, do you need anything right now? As opposed to, do you need that thing that you just saw?
Yeah.
So, and I get it's easy to be able to sort of go, right, I'm going to spend 5 minutes in the supermarket on top of everything else that needs to be done. But sometimes, yeah, and like in our generation, we will model that from our parents because it was modeled from their parents,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
so yes, we're in the process of breaking those cycles
Yeah.
so that we can bring a bit more awareness. Like, hey, kids, yeah, we don't have a money problem, but we're not just buying everything. If we bought
Yeah.
everything,
Then we would have a money problem.
well, yeah, or it's just like, do you know how much, do you know how wasteful that would be?
Yeah.
It's sort of like you'd get probably, and there are those that are less fortunate that are just literally scratching by
Yeah.
to go from week to week. And there is a sense of literally, we can't afford it.
Yeah.
So if you
Absolutely.
if you lose that school jumper to buy it brand new, and if it's a uniform school jumper,
Looking at
what,
$70.
easy,
Yeah.
right?
$80.
Not just a simple. And then suddenly that's another unexpected cost,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and parents get upset, and then the kids go, "Well, if I lose any clothes, the parents are going to go mad at me." And so, like, well, how do I not go mad? Because here I am trying to regulate myself,
Yeah.
trying to get week to week, and $80 can be, like you think about $80, and you have to go buy food at a supermarket that involves protein, right? for 4 people, what are you spending?
Yeah.
40, $50? Easy. Just on
Yeah.
one
On
meal.
one meal. Yeah, exactly. It's
Um,
crazy, isn't it?
mm.
And
So the
I feel like how we respond is it's the same for everything. How we respond really sets them up because you're
mm,
right. Like I grew up in a family that didn't have much, and my dad was a meat worker. My mum worked part time at Coles. We didn't have a lot of money, and I remember this is a funny story, but I got these glasses and they were more expensive than all the other glasses, but they were Bugs Bunny glasses. And they had these cute little paws on the end of the like this
nice.
bit, the arm.
Yep, yep.
And one day I was at school and I was waiting for my mum to pick me up. We were outside and I thought I lost my glasses because at the time, mum made a really big deal out of it.
Mm.
Going but I cracked her, just like the example you gave before. I was like, "Mum, please, I have to have them. I really want them. Mum,
Please,
mum."
please, please, please,
Yeah,
please.
and they were the more expensive ones because they
Mhm,
had all these cute little fancy features and they were, licensed. So,
mhm.
anyway, mum got them for me, which was a huge deal, and I thought I lost them. And oh my goodness, I was hysterically crying. I was so scared
Mm.
of what my parents' reaction would be because I had lost these glasses that I knew that we couldn't, I was about to say couldn't afford. We could afford it. But
Well, you did afford it, but it would have
yeah,
been at
but
a
it meant
cost.
that it created some tight financial stuff
Mm.
elsewhere in our family. And anyway, my mum picked me up and I ran up to her and I was like, "I'm so sorry, mummy. I've looked everywhere. I've looked in my bag and my glasses aren't there." And she just burst into laughter because they were on my face. But
Okay.
I distinctly recall that memory because of how
Mm,
frightened I was because I knew that my parents, who didn't have much money, had spent this money on the glasses and I thought I had lost them.
mm.
It, yeah, that stuck with me.
Yeah, and I even, and you would have been petrified
Yeah.
as well.
Follow on from that, only the next year, I think it was, my birthday in we were in Perth, for a BMX event, and I really wanted this wallet. And so my parents said, "Okay, you can spend your birthday money, you can get it, but we'll hold on to the rest of your birthday money." No, I wanna have all my money in my wallet.
That's why I'm buying a wallet.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so then we were in Kmart or something, and, we were just walking around, and I sat it down to look at something and walked off. And literally within 30 seconds, it was gone.
Yep.
And I lost all of my birthday money. It was absolutely devastating. But do you know what those things taught me? I've never lost a phone. I've never lost my wallet as an adult. I've never lost my keys. I don't lose things
Mm.
because before I leave, I literally will always turn around and check on the table, on the seat, make sure I haven't left anything behind.
Just in case.
Yeah. And I was
Mm.
8 when I learnt that lesson. So sometimes these things that we experience can actually support us to create good habits, but
Mm.
there's other things that are not so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, even in the lead up to Christmas last year, I was letting sort of Darcy know because she wanted to buy these different things. I said, "Look, money's a bit tight at the moment, so things that we don't necessarily need, I'm not really interested in buying. We'll, you know, we'll look at it later." Even just saying that, she just then started planning around, and she gave me a list of things that she'd like for Christmas, but they were like really cheap, like
Yeah.
$1, $2, like really, really sort of like tacky toys that were
Yeah.
sort of like eBay specials or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
What's going on?" And she goes, "Well, I know things are really. I can't remember what the word was, but she sort of goes, I know we don't have a lot of money at the moment." I said, "Well, no, like, don't worry about. We've got money, but I'm not buying it on because Darcy loves to experiment with the lunches that she takes to school,
Yeah.
which is great. Apart from she wants a new container more often than I'm actually prepared to buy them,
Yeah.
because as quickly as she's into one phase, she's quickly on to the next one.
Yeah.
So it's all like, mm. And this time she wanted a soup container that can also hold snacks. I'm like, pretty cool idea, but no, it's not for school. Um, and so kids can be, yeah, very much influenced about how we did it as we were influenced. And so coming back to the whole sort of what is a money story and how we look at these money stories and how we can, in a responsible way, because I think this is going to be very, very clear. There's a there's a scale, or there's a axis where if you take what we're saying too far, it's irresponsible. There's
Yeah,
there, there's a there
absolutely.
there has
It
to
can
be
go both extremes.
there's a responsibility that we're going to be sort of talking about in all of this. However, what we're going to be focusing on is how do we get out of the lack mindset, which
Mm,
is incredibly difficult when you look at your bank account and you get just a sinking feeling in your stomach. Doesn't matter what the amount is. If you look at your bank account and it hits you in the pit of your stomach, or a bill comes in, it hits you at the pit of your stomach, or you have to go put fuel in the car, and it hits you in the pit of the stomach. It's very hard in those situations to go, oh, okay, I don't have a lack mindset, because what you are doing at that point in time is shifting your perspective. So a shift of perspective needs to have a start, and the start's probably the hardest bit. And
yeah, and
it's
I would say the start is even having awareness of your current perspective, even before we start to shift it. If we
mm,
don't have awareness of how things make us feel, and I say that because when I'm talking about how things make us feel, I'm talking about what do we actually feel in our body in response to those things, because that's a big indicator of our trauma response. If we don't know if we have money stories, here, close your eyes. Let's explore this in the next 2 minutes. What happens if you take a nice big deep breath in, really grounding into your body? What happens in your body when we talk about giving someone a gift? For many, many people, that feels warm and it feels joyful and it feels loving. But for another subsample of people, that will feel like stress. They will feel
mm,
tightening in their chest. It might be because they don't have the money for a gift, or it might be because there's so much pressure to get the gift right, or they feel like they're a terrible gift giver, or whatever.
or do they deserve it?
Yeah. Yeah. And then if we follow that up, like if you close your eyes again, take a nice deep breath, and then follow that up with how do you feel in your body to receive? If someone were to gift you money, or if someone were to do an act of kindness, or even to receive a compliment, if someone were to give you a compliment, do you
Mm.
feel warm and calm and grounded in your body? Or do you go into a awkward, like, oh, this is really uncomfortable and awkward and I don't know what to say, and oh, you shouldn't have, and oh no, you didn't have to do that, and oh, that in itself exposes money stories.
Yeah,
A money
absolutely.
story doesn't always have to be bad. It's just a story. It's,
Mm,
oh, I love giving gifts. It's my favorite way to love someone. That's a money story.
mm,
It's not a bad one, but what that might manifest as is at Christmas time, if we've got increased cost of living, increased mortgage, increased everything. If you got to Christmas time, looked at your bank balance and thought, oh my gosh, I show love by giving gifts, and that's going to really put financial strain on me, all of a sudden, giving gifts becomes the stressor.
mm,
And so, if we don't know how to show love, if we don't know how to gain that significance by any other means than giving someone a gift that has cost money, then that's going to be really stressful for us. We're going to probably put ourselves into a financial position that is longer lasting purely to play out that money story. Like it's wild.
oh, it is. Just as we were doing that exercise, right? And you sort of said, "How do you feel about receiving money?" Let me just give you a little insight to what happened to me when we were doing that. Number one, I love earning money. I love it. I love earning money. I got no problem with that. I have a real problem people giving me money.
Oh, so you got to
And
did you grow up with you've got to work hard for your money?
well, I mean, my parents did work hard for it, and there was a situation of, you have to go and earn it. Like there's no free rides. There you go.
Yeah.
There's another one.
There's
Yeah.
no free no such thing
Yep.
as a free lunch?
Yep.
Did you get
Yep.
that?
Yep.
Isn't that
And
amazing?
but quite literally, if I have to ask someone for money, and I very rarely do it, it's awkward because for me, I'm still working through that sense of I should be able to do it myself.
Mhm.
And that's probably got to do with being hyper independent and, protecting myself from being let down and all of those things, that there's still relics of all of that playing out. But it's fascinating how that can then relate into money. So but I do love giving money.
Yeah.
And I know people who love to give money but will absolutely not receive money
Yeah.
because it's an issue for them. Like, hang
Yeah.
on. And I think if I had to be brutally honest, it's a control thing. For me, I enjoy being in control of my feelings, which is if I give money, I feel good.
Yeah.
If someone gives me money, well, hang on, do they think I need the money? Do they, like, suddenly I'm up in
It's
my
the
head?
stories that come up. What does it mean? It's the
Mm.
meaning we assign to someone giving us money. Yeah,
Yeah,
isn't that
like I
amazing?
can't do it myself. Of course I can do it myself.
Yeah.
Or then now I owe you something. Um,
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm now not in control of all of these feelings from someone else, but
Yeah.
when I'm giving them money, I can give them without expecting it back, but I'm in control of that.
Yep. Yep.
And
100%.
so there's so many different things that are playing out subconsciously around the money stories, even before we even tap into the concept of how do we go from this lack mindset, which is money doesn't grow on trees, you got to, work for your money and all of
Mhm.
that. All of those things have a place when it comes to being responsible, as you said, for the stewardess. What would you say? The stewarding of your money, uh,
Yeah, responsible
and
stewardship.
and versus, okay, I have to save every cent and I can't spend
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah,
which
and
means that
hoarding cash. So that was the other extreme I was gonna raise is
mm,
it's not just one end. Like, when we think of money stories and money dysfunction, we think about being broke. We think about blowing all of our money. And so impulse buying, spending money really carelessly without doing due diligence of what the ripple effects of spending that money is gonna be.
mm,
Blowing all your money. I mean, really how often do you hear of people who have won the lottery or something, or they've got an inheritance, and that inheritance could have really set them up,
but
really
then
made a
zoom,
huge ripple effect, and yet
gone.
it's blown, it's gone, and they
Mm,
have nothing to show for it at the end. um, there's all of that side of it, but also on the other side is the extreme end of hoarding cash and holding on to it like you're never going to get another cent of income ever again. You're going to hold on to it and get anxious around spending it. And that was probably more me.
mm,
When I moved to Melbourne alone when I was 16, and as I said, we grew up in a household that didn't have much money, so the money that I had, I would be so tight. If I went out for dinner with my friends, I would not order anything. I would eat before I went and just have a glass of water.
mm,
I would not buy a bottle of water. I would take my bottle, and if it was empty, I would find a tap to refill it. I
mm.
never bought coffees out. I literally could not spend money. It gave me so much anxiety, especially also around like um, the other weird behaviors that this played into is my self-care. Like, I probably only get a haircut once or twice a year. I don't dye my hair. I don't spend money on skincare or nails or anything like that because it wasn't an essential thing. But also my behavior around food. It was a money story that led to me feeling like I had to eat everything on the plate, that led to
Yeah.
me eating my kids' leftovers because I couldn't possibly put the dinner they didn't eat in the bin. And that was all
Wasting.
from a
Yeah.
money story because of the wastage, because of the lack. but it was hoarding, and it was not letting go of the things, even the leftover food, not wanting to let go of it because of that
Mm.
reason, um, because of how much I've spent on it or how much I've paid for it.
Absolutely, and I think these are when you sort of think about what's a healthy version of everything you spoke about, like making sure that you've got enough on your plate, but not you don't have to always be leaving stuff. Like you're filling yourself up to full, but you're filling the plate up beyond that, so you're throwing it out.
Yeah.
There's healthy points to that where you're doing that as opposed to like I remember I went to a buffet. I can't remember exactly where it was. It was a great buffet though. It had all you could eat hamburgers, cheeseburgers, and you build the burgers yourself, right?
Yeah.
Hot dogs and pizza. So the little boy in me went spastic. This is like me a couple of years ago, like 4 years ago. Um, anyway, there's this thing where I was looking at all of this food and there's no one saying you cannot have that. You get to
Yeah.
decide exactly how much you want, and that's it. And part of me just wanted to load the damn plate up as much as I could.
Yeah.
In the end, I took, I think 2 cheeseburgers and a hot dog. Now, full disclosure, I got all the way through apart from leaving half a hamburger.
Yeah.
And I sort of went, oh, that's way too much. But I know for next time, okay, like my eyes are bigger than my stomach. Table next to me, so I didn't see the people who were sitting there, but I saw what they left behind, and it disgusted me.
Because there
To
was so much food wastage?
so much food left on both plates. And what do you do? Like you can tell the things are untouched, but the even the waiter or the waitress came over and just looked at it and just was shaking their heads. Like there was 2 chairs, but there was 4 plates. And I can't remember exactly how much food was there, but there was probably the amount of food that was left on those plates could have easily fed 4 or 5 people
Yeah, wow.
on the leftovers that were left. And I just sort of went, wow, that's disgusting. But also, part of me sort of thinks that this thing of when you really have this sort of lack mentality, that you've always had to restrain and control yourself, the first time you let at
Yes.
something like that,
Yeah.
you're not acting out of hunger. You're acting out of I need to grab as much as I can because number one, you must get some sort of it's either dopamine or oxytocin
Mhm.
hit from just sort of you know just scooping up everything that you want versus having a measured approach of I'll grab a burger, I'll grab a hot dog, and then if I'm still hungry, I can go back
Yeah.
as opposed to I better take all these now in
Yeah.
case it's not there when I come back. Because we're
Yeah.
kind of used to where we've been we've been taught that take it now because it might not be there later. Because someone else might take it.
Yeah.
Just like your wallet. Someone clearly saw your wallet and went, well, since you're sloppy, your loss, my gain.
Mhm.
As opposed to just leave it. They might come back. Or I don't know if it's Mr. Beast or someone else on YouTube says, take $1 or pass it on to the next person. And every time he says it, he doubles it.
Yeah.
And it gets to someone where they go, I'll take it. And so, you know, we're really in that sort of sense of we have to, I suppose, fight for our piece of turf, fight for our money, fight for all of these things.
Yeah, it's a survival instinct that comes out at
Yeah.
the end of the day. It really amazes me. I'm sitting here thinking, well, how else does this play out in people's lives? And I think I work with a lot of business owners, and I
Mm,
work with a lot of professional people, and this can play out. even in professional lives or even in businesses, right? And again, it can go to either extreme. You can have some business owners, like I have a client who um, has built an extremely profitable business, multi seven figures, but is still deeply unfulfilled.
Mm.
And so they had a belief that as a child they had no money and their family was unhappy. There was always fighting, there was always conflict. So their belief was, well, we didn't have money and we were unhappy. So if I have money, I'll be happy.
Mm.
And so they dedicated all of their adult life to generating money, but didn't actually realize that the lack of money wasn't the reason necessarily for the unhappiness.
Well, not the total reason. It may
Not
have
it
played
was a
a part.
contributor.
It was a
Absolutely. It can
yeah.
contribute to stress and it can contribute to that. But there's such a deeper level of unfulfillment in relationship, unfulfillment in our own unresolved trauma and our own miseries and all those kinds of things. And also a mismatch in, like I said before, in knowing our personal purpose and why we're here and what we're going to do with that money. And so all of a sudden they've like stockpiled all this money and realized, well, I'm still not happy. I am unfulfilled. I don't know. I've never had a healthy relationship. I am estranged from my kids. I don't know how to be happy because I'd never experienced that. And so there's that, but then also on the other end of that, I have other business owners who was completely sabotaging the success of their business financially. And then when we dig into that, you look at, okay, that manifests in lots of different ways. Oh no, I'm not going to show my face online. Oh no, I'm not
Mm.
I'm not comfortable reaching out or cold calling, or I'm not comfortable doing this or doing that. All of those things, if you removed the fears that stopped you from doing it, it might be fear of rejection, it might be fear of other people's opinions, whatever. If you removed all those fears and you actually just bloody did it, and your business started to generate revenue and you were wildly successful, does
Mm.
that feel safe for you? Because it's those stories that show up in even how we run our business, how we invoice people, how we follow up on debt, how we set boundaries around money, how we honor our time, how we show up online, how we engage in marketing. All of these things can stem
Mm.
back to a money story around, I don't want to be wealthy. And I think this was a big thing for me. One of my big money stories was, I don't want to earn a lot of money. I don't need a lot of money. I'm a pretty simple person.
Mm. Well, I don't need money to complete me. I don't want people to judge me that I have money.
Yes, and that's what it came down to. What I realized is when I was a kid, um, we lived in a small farming district, and as I already mentioned, we didn't have a lot. But the people who did, I witnessed absolute smackdowns of. People would
Mm.
judge them, people would talk crap about them, people would be really unkind, and also there was a fair bit of ego in that. And so if
Mm.
that becomes the threat, my strategy is to avoid the threat. How do I avoid the threat? Just don't have money. Don't show money.
Mm.
Don't drive a nice car. Don't only wear Kmart clothes. Don't wear nice clothes. Don't, you know, wear nice jewelry. And so this was a game changer for me because I realized, oh my gosh, all of the dreams and aspirations I have of helping people all around the world who don't have the financial resources to access professional specialist help with their lives, with their mental health, with their relationships, with all of that stuff. The only way I can help them if I have the money to finance it.
Mm.
And as
Yeah.
soon as I realized that the purpose for money for me wasn't about the flashy mansions and the flashy cars and the, fancy nails all the time and all that kind of stuff, because I think at my core, that's not important to me. It's not high on my list of values. But all of a sudden, when I had a vision where the financial resources of money could resource, maybe it's a not for profit or maybe it's something like that in the future.
Mm.
But if I had $100 million Imagine the people that I could help or that we could help.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, now I have a financial motivation that feels really safe to me because that's aligned to my purpose. That's aligned to my mission. That's aligned to why I feel like I'm walking the earth at this time. It's not about serving me and it's not about, the fear of judgment, but I know that there will be people out there. If I even so much as, go on a holiday, people will be triggered by that.
But yes, they will be triggered because it's running something out there. And I think it's important as well when you're thinking about all of that is how the concept of abundance
Mhm.
ties into the concept of your purpose.
Yeah.
That then ties into, okay, well, we've got an extreme version of all of this where it sort of says, let's just say you're following your purpose. And, as you sort of said, your purpose is to really help people to get advice that they can't necessarily get access to at the moment.
Yeah.
The more money you've got, the bigger the reach can be, and more people help, and then more people talk about it, and those people can then help
Yeah.
their
There's a
communities,
ripple
and
effect.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so this is all purpose based, right?
Mhm.
This is not I want $100 million because the next
I wanna
Ferrari I
own a super
want,
yacht and
and
a
you know
Maserati and
all of those. They're two different things. There's the accumulation of stuff which only money can really provide.
yeah.
It's accumulating stuff again. Um, but you're following your purpose, and then abundance is here. And when you see the abundance mindset, it is actually very easy to feel abundance with $100 million in the bank, unless you're a country that requires hundreds of billions of dollars in the bank.
Yeah.
Right, so the number changes, but if it's just
Yeah.
you and me, $100 million would solve, like, there's absolutely nothing, like, we'd have a hard time spending it.
Imagine
However,
if that was our biggest problem.
absolutely, but we'd still have problems, right? I mean, that kind of money brings other things, but let's look at a lack mentality when it comes to any amount of money or in any situation, because abundance at its core is to bring you what you need in that moment for your purpose.
Mm.
Now, I can, my future self, I can think out into the future to a point where I now have no money. Because what I've done is I've taken the money I have now and gone into the future and decided, well, these bills aren't going to stop, but my money stops. And that's a lack mindset. But if I look right now and I look around and go, do I have everything I need right now
Mm.
to say these words? I absolutely do. So
Yeah.
everything in the bank account right now is now surplus to my needs.
Yeah.
I'll still need them for certain things in the future, but I've got everything I need right now, and
Yeah.
that's part of being in the moment. And when we look at being spiritual,
Oh,
doing your
gosh.
purpose,
There's so much in the
right?
spiritual realm around or in the not
Are
realm,
you are
world.
you yeah, are you allowed to make money through your purpose?
Mm.
Oh, now that's another thing.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you're making money through your purpose, you're not being authentic now. This is
Yes.
a judgment, or
Yeah, it is,
it
and it's a
is
common one. It's something
it,
I grappled with
yeah.
initially, but so here's an interesting thing. I don't know if I've shared this in the podcast before, but when I started seeing clients, I had a full-time job. I never started doing this work because I wanted to earn money from it. I started doing it because I had students writing in their assignments that they were going to unalive themselves,
Mm,
in submitting their assignments that I was then marking, and I this was, a number of years ago now, and I got to a point where I was like, "I need to actually have an impact on the world. I can change people's lives. I can support them to support themselves to make a
mm,
change and come out of their struggles." So, that's when I started seeing clients, and initially, I charged so little because
mm,
it really was from a helping space. But something I did from day one is I separated any money that I earned from seeing clients from my personal finances because I had a job that paid my personal bills.
mhm,
And what that allowed me to do is really dive deeply into my values, deeply into the psychology of money in the space that I work in. And I played around. I charged really little. And you know what would happen? People wouldn't show up. People would be late all the time. People wouldn't do the like 2 minutes of homework a day that I would set for them. People would
Mm.
say all the right things, but then they wouldn't actually follow through. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And so what
Versus now when people.
versus now, yeah. And
Mm.
so what that allowed me to do is over a period of time, I played with pricing to understand the psychology of how much investment influenced outcome.
Hmm.
And as soon as I started, I've done this in a couple of different ways. I used to have a lot of no shows for initial consultations. And as soon as I started charging just a $49 fee for our initial consultation, my no show rate just completely disappeared. All of a sudden, everyone started showing up because they
Mm.
had invested something into that time without realizing that for everyone who didn't show up, there were time booked out of my calendar that other people who needed help couldn't get in to get that help.
Absolutely.
And so that was one thing. But then I started playing around with pricing around getting the specialist support that people needed. And I reached this sweet spot where it is an uncomfortable investment for most people. It is. But when you, and I say to people, when you look around, if you had to go into a shop and you could buy your peace of mind, you could buy improved relationships, you could buy a healthier future for your kids, how much would you really be willing to pay? And most people will say way more than what it's actually charged, the programs are charged at. But the incredible thing is the resistance that comes up around the investment is an important part in your outcome simply because you have had to say it's worth it.
Mm.
I'm ready. I will do whatever it takes.
Mm.
And so people show up, people do the work, people really turn towards their issues and it's confronting for them, but they move through it. And then the outcomes that they get are absolutely phenomenal. That was not happening when I was charging so little for it. And so there's a real psychology around money and around energy exchange and investment and
Mm.
all those kinds of things. So I find it absolutely phenomenal. And then over a period of time, I left my university career. I was a uni lecturer for 12 years, left that, and the business was my only form of income.
Mm.
And that brought up new money stories that I had to navigate. So, there's so
And
much in it.
it's huge. And when you think about living your purpose to help people, and part of that is you need to charge for it, and you feel yourself that if it's to help people in a way which is conscious, or well, sort of quote unquote spiritual terms or things like that,
Mhm.
then you're going to come across either internally or from other people that if you're really that spiritual, you just be doing it for free.
You'd be giving it away,
Yeah,
yes.
and absolutely you would. Anyone would 100% do it for absolutely nothing. And when you look at in the past, when you got churches and things like that do all these things for free, you're right. But the difference is in today's world that the people that were doing it for free also had their needs met. This is
Yes.
very important.
Yes.
So they had shelter. Other
Yes.
people provided them food,
Yep.
right? And outside of really those two things, they were able to live their purpose without having to charge.
Yep.
Now, are we working towards that kind of future? Yeah. Are we there right now? Absolutely not. There's
Yep.
absolutely steps to go.
Fiscal currency, dollars, is the currency of the world.
Hmm.
When I started really praying into this initially when I was struggling to charge more, and what I got is that dollars is the currency of the earth and faith is the currency of heaven. And that was so profound for me because it was. I can't go and pay my bills with my faith.
No. Or
you know,
hugs
we
or
live on an earth
gratitude. Yeah.
that has a fiscal currency.
Mm.
And that's another whole entire money story, is the church thing, because there's so much hate in society towards churches because they don't pay taxes. But the reason they don't pay taxes is because the negligible amount, well, I mean, it would probably be a lot of tax money that the government would earn if they taxed churches, is stuff all in comparison to how much it would cost the government to do the equivalent in community service that churches do. So if the
Mm.
government had to fund programs like the food hubs and community outreach and everything that churches do in their communities, the government would not be able to fund that. And
Mm.
so even if the churches paid the taxes, which meant that they couldn't run the programs, the government can't replace those programs that the community uses and needs. And so even that is such an interesting money story, because it perpetuates hate against these, uh, churches or organizations, that is misguided and misunderstood and has been passed down through generations. Like, there's so many things that I believed and learned that as an adult, when I started to question it and I started to gain more information, I've kind of gone, hang on a minute, that's not quite right. like that's not what I have thought my whole entire life. And this is where we need to get to. So
Mm.
I'm conscious we're coming to the end of this, but
Yeah.
I would encourage you, if you are listening, sit down and look at, how is your relationship with money influencing your behaviors? How does it influence your decision making?
Mm.
How do you feel in your body around money, around your career, around earning more? Right down to, what skill sets or unique talents do you have that you could absolutely monetize, but you have fears in the way of doing that?
Mm.
Start exploring this, because then once you have the answers to some of those questions, then write down 10 ways your life would change if you were able to release those belief systems and come back into alignment with truth. Repair your relationship with money, feel safe accepting it, feel safe spending it.
Yeah,
So
and research abundance. Maybe we should do another episode on abundance.
maybe another term.
Mm.
I
All
hope
right.
this has been insightful for people, and I hope that sharing some of our personal stories has helped them identify some little nuggets of gold in their own lives. But reach out, guys. We'd love to join the conversation with you, and let us know how this conversation influences the decisions that you make and your behaviors around money and what you're going to start doing instead.
Mm.
Maybe it's starting with not loading up that plate and just eating,
Yeah.
putting on the plate whatever you feel you can eat.
All right. Awesome. Good episode, Ash. We'll catch you next week.
See ya.
See ya. Bye bye.